One of the first things I want to start with is just really teaching you a little bit about the background of the company and just kind of where we came from and where we're going. So back in the 70s, there was a gentleman named Art Williams, and he had a background as a high school football coach out of Cairo, Georgia. His family was actually taken advantage of by a whole life sales rep. And the biggest issue was that his father had paid a whole bunch of money into this whole life policy, but it was built as what was called a level policy. And so all the cash that he put into it was actually kept by the insurance company, and they got a small death benefit. And had the plan been structured differently, his family would have been in a much better position. But he was determined that since that happened to his family, that he wasn't going to let it happen to anybody else. And so he decided that he was going to go get his life insurance license and securities license and start teaching people how to do a concept called buy term and invest the difference. And the whole concept there was, let's say that a whole life insurance policy was going to cost like $200 a month. And of that 200, let's say 160 is cost and 40 is going towards cash, right? Then over time, if it bought a $100,000 policy or $200,000 policy, over time, had you instead bought a term policy where you could have gotten the same coverage for 10 or 15 bucks a month and invested the other $180 a month into mutual funds, then over time, the mutual funds would actually outweigh the life insurance policy. And so when the term expired, it was okay because you had enough money where you were self-insured now. And so that was the whole concept back in the 70s that they were trying to create, was the buy term, invest the difference strategy. And so he was actually, even though he was starting off with like really no industry experience, like he was actually able to quickly replace his income as a coach, and he went full-time with that company, but he still didn't really feel like he was aligned with the vision of that company. And so he decided he was going to go start his own. And so that's where he actually started A.L. Williams back in 1977 with 7 different business partners. So him and 7 other people all got together to start A.L. Williams. And business was steadily growing. It was going well. But then in 1979, so 2 years after the founding of A.L. Williams, Art actually recruited somebody named Hubert Humphrey. And Hubert Humphrey had a background as a diamond level in a company called Amway, which, who's familiar with Amway? All right, so it's a multi-level marketing company, a network marketing company. A lot of people call them pyramid schemes, but he was a part of that company and did very well for himself. But after he got to one of the higher levels, there was a lot of things that Hubert just didn't agree with Amway, and so he left Amway. But the thing was that Hubert felt like there was pieces of the Amway business model that would actually tie in very, very well, but there was a lot of things that he didn't like that he wanted to kind of create a hybrid. And so he started making these proposals to Art, and Art basically said, like, no, all network marketing companies get a bad name about them, right? I don't want to skew the reputation of my company. There's no way I'm going to incorporate that. And so Hubert was very, very persistent and kept saying, hey, here's the negatives, here's the positives, and tried to get Art to understand that if he incorporated the two, what would happen. And the biggest challenge is, the reason that companies like Amway get such a bad reputation is because, number one, there's been a whole bunch of pyramid schemes out there, which I'm just curious, out of everyone with their videos on right now, like, who has ever done a network marketing company before? Right? There's tons of them, right? You got Monavie, Tupperware, Cutco knives, Kirby vacuums, right? There's tons of them. And you've got two things. You've got what's called a multi-level marketing company, and then you've got an actual pyramid scheme. And so when I was 14 years old, remember I told you I was a little bit skeptical. It took 4 different people to talk to me about even getting a meeting with this company. Where my skepticism came from, the reason I was so closed-minded to looking at this, was because it started when I was 14 years old. My mom had somebody that came to live with us for about 4 months while she was having her house built. And in that time frame, she started receiving these envelopes with cash in aluminum foil. And so she would like tear open an envelope, pull out this like wad of aluminum foil, open it up, and then cash would fall out. And so you can imagine that seems a little sketchy. And so after the 3rd, 4th envelope that came in, we finally confronted her and said, okay, why are you getting cash wrapped in aluminum foil mailed to you at our house? We're like, are you dealing drugs? Are you doing something illegal? Like, what are you doing? And she said, oh, no. It's this great program. It's called cash gifting. Like, okay, what is that? She said, it's easy. And this is what she drew out for us. So she said, you have this one person on top, and then you've got 2, and then 4, and then 8. And basically these 7 people work together to recruit 8 people. And as each of these people are coming in, you could start off with as low as a $150 board, and you would take $150 and mail it to the address to the person listed on top. The reason for the aluminum foil is so that people at the post office don't see that there's money in the envelope and take it. Right? But then after they get it, they add you to the board. And then after this is all filled up, then what happens is it branches off, and now you've got 2. And then now you and these 7 people work together to recruit 8. And then it branches again, and then it branches again. And finally, after all these people are brought in, you're now at the top of your own board. And so now you paid $150 to a complete and total stranger one time. And then in exchange, when you're at the top of your own board, right, then everyone's sending you the $150 and you get $1,200 in return. And then she's like, oh, and then you could take $1,000, and then you could join a $1,000 board, then you get $8,000, and then you could join a $10,000 board and you can get $80,000. Imagine sending $10,000 in cash to a complete and total random stranger, right? That was my first exposure to business at 14 years old. And that is a pyramid scheme that it's illegal, first off. And that company got shut down for being in an illegal pyramid scheme. And I took my $150 that I'd worked the whole summer to save up enough money to buy an Xbox for, and I sent it off to a stranger and never saw anything in return. So that was my first exposure to business. A pyramid scheme, just in case anybody is ever curious about that, if you ever hear that term, because you will hear it in our industry, if you ever hear the term pyramid scheme, it is an illegal business with no product and no service. You are just paid to recruit people, right? That's a pyramid scheme. But then you have network marketing, which is a very common business model. There's tons of companies that have a business model like it, but it has a very negative reputation. And the reason why is because you've got 2 different types of multi-level marketing. You've got a bilinear model, and then you've got an infinite marketing organization model. And this is all important into understanding where we came from. So the bilinear model, I joined a company when I was 18 years old. I had just gotten a $20,000 sign-on bonus from the military, and somebody approached me about this company called Team National. And the product was like a glorified savings plan. And you paid $2,000 for a membership. All right. But the way that it worked is that if you sold a lifetime membership, it was $2,195, and that was worth 3 points. And then if you sold a 2-year membership, it was $795, and that was worth 1 point. So really the product was you spent money to save money. So it took some time to recoup it. But you could only have 2 legs. So you could go out and recruit somebody. You can get one person here, but that's it. Everyone else, you had to stack under everyone else. And so the issue with this business model was the fact that if you sold a lifetime membership, it'd be worth 3 points. And let's say you sold a 2-year, that's 1, and then 3, and then another 3, right? You add all this together. Let's say that's 10 points. Every time your right leg and your left leg hit 10 points and 10 points, you would get a $1,500 commission check. But what happens if one leg hit 15 points and the other hit 5? It would cancel. You wouldn't get any payout. And the next month it would reset to 0 and 0. So you could sell thousands of dollars in memberships and never get paid a dime. And the biggest issue with the bilinear network marketing model is the fact that because you can only have 2 legs, all of the money flows upwards. So even though it's technically legal because they actually are selling a product or service, that is where any of, like, if you ever hear, oh, the people that got in earlier, the people that are on the top make all the money, that's a bilinear model because everything flows upwards, and it is a pyramid. But it's a legal pyramid because there's a product, right? So then the difference with the infinite marketing organization was the fact that you could have unlimited people direct to you. And so also around the time I did Team National, right after I got out of that, I got into a company called Monavie. Does everyone ever heard of that? It was like an acai berry juice sold in a wine bottle, right? So when I joined that company, the product was acai berry juice, and it was like fresh from the Amazon, never frozen, had all the antioxidants, all this. But nonetheless, it was $50 a bottle. So selling a $50 bottle of juice isn't easy, first off. But if you did manage to sell it, you got paid a 10% commission. So you got paid $5. for selling a $50 bottle of juice. Can you make a livable income selling $50 bottles of juice for $5 a commission a piece? So the challenge with the network marketing companies is the fact that they're selling products that have very low profit margins. And because of that, it's very difficult to sell enough to make a livable income just selling the product. So then what you have to do is you have to recruit people. And then when you recruit people, they would make a small portion, and then there's a piece that pays out to the upline. But the guy that recruited me into Monavie, he said, oh, by the way, I'm making $30,000 a month on this right now. And I said, show me. And he did. And he legitimately was making $30,000 a month on a juice company. And so I joined. And then what I didn't realize at the time until I got in was he was a little higher up than I thought he was. And he actually had on his team over 50,000 distributors. So get this, he had 50,000 people on his team, and he was only making $30,000 a month. That's less than $1 per person per month. And so the benefit of the Infinite Marketing Organization was the fact that it doesn't flow upwards. Because first generations pay higher than other generations. If you have more people that are direct to you than somebody else, it doesn't matter where you fall in the organization chart. Anybody could pass anybody in income level. That was the benefit of it. But still, the profit margins are the biggest issue. And so what's intriguing about this is that when you look at the positives and negatives that Hubert was trying to spin, what he was trying to create was a system where somebody can have a franchise. They can have their own system, right, and have some of the benefits of that business model without the negatives of having to go out and recruit thousands of people, or having to go sell to your friends and family, and having to go push products that have low profit margins that you can't make a livable income on. And so where this stems from, there's a book written by Robert Kiyosaki called The Cash Flow Quadrant. And it shows you that there's 4 ways you can legally make money in the United States. You have employed, self-employed, business owner, and investor. And on the right side, or on the left side of this quadrant, this is where 95% of people are, but it's where only 10% of all the wealth in America is. On the right side of the quadrant is where 5% of people are, but it's where 90% of all the wealth in America is, right? And so figure 95% of people split 10% of all the wealth, 5% of people split 90% of all the wealth in America. So most people in our country are employed. And employed is where we are trading time for money. And that kind of goes back to the example I gave about like if you're salary or hourly, we are paid for our time. But then a lot of people that have a good work ethic, they decide, I'm not getting paid what I'm worth. I want to step out and I want to become self-employed. And the biggest difference there is that imagine that you had somebody that was working for a lawn care company making like $15 an hour. But then they decided to spin out and they start their own lawn care company. Well, now if they mow 3 or 4 times the amount of yards as somebody else, they actually get paid 3 or 4 times the amount of money. So now they're paid for their energy and effort that goes into something. But the challenge is a lot of self-employed people think that they're business owners. But there's one very key distinction between self-employed business owner and a true business owner. And that difference is a system, which system is an acronym, by the way. It stands for Save Yourself Time, Energy, and Money. Right? And so a system runs a business, whereas with a self-employed business owner, they run their business. So picture like a local mom and pop restaurant. You pretty much always see the owner of that restaurant working in that restaurant, right? If you go to a McDonald's, do you ever see the owner of the McDonald's working in the McDonald's? Like, no, that's not why they bought it, right? And so what happens if the local mom and pop business owner leaves for 3 months? Does their business operate the same without them? Well, no, because their employees are not going to work harder to build their business, right? And so that distinction right there, the best way to tell if somebody is truly a business owner is ask them, could you leave your business for 90 days or more and come back making the same, if not more than you were if you left? And if the answer to that question is yes, then it's a true business. If the answer to that question is no, they're a self-employed business owner. Right. And the last one is the I, which is investor. And that's where the majority of their income and assets are held through actively managed or income generating assets. Right. But no surprise, like one of the simplest ways to have a system is to buy a franchise. Right. But McDonald's, obviously #1 franchise. The challenge with McDonald's is it has a pretty high startup cost. You're typically looking at 1 to 2.2 million, but on average, it's $1.5 million to buy yourself a McDonald's. So figure you pay 1.5 million. Now on the right side, I put the average profit of one McDonald's location. So the average McDonald's location does $2.7 million a year in sales. That is a lot of hamburgers. Now, after you deduct $810,000 in food cost, $108,000 for paper cups, bags, all that kind of stuff, $540,000 for crew payroll, management payroll, payroll taxes, advertising, and then all the way down to rent and legal fees and insurance and all that. On 2.7 million in sales, the average McDonald's franchisee owner is left with $153,000 of operating income. So figure they pay 1.5 million to make 150,000, but for doing what? Nothing. Just saying I own a McDonald's. So it takes 10 years to break even, but then they make 150,000 for the rest of their life. But let's say they want to make 300,000. Should they go fire all their crew and then they start flipping burgers and be the cashier and all that to make 300,000? No, they would just go buy another McDonald's. So the system piece is great about a franchise, but the challenge is, where do you come up with the $1.5 million to start it? It's the cost. The upfront cost is the biggest issue. And so when you looked at that multi-level marketing model, the infinite marketing organization, one of the benefit is there's a system in place. And when you brought somebody on your team, they didn't work for you. They were running and building their own business. So that means if you left, your business doesn't crumble because they're building their own business with or without you. And it was one of the only business models where you could build something and your income goes up when you stop instead of down. It doesn't really happen anywhere else. But there was all the negatives that I mentioned. And so when you look at that as a kind of like a T-chart, comparing them here, let me get out of this annotation real quick. So when you look at this T-chart, kind of comparing them, the positives of the business model was that it was low cost, right? So you get your own business, you get your own system, but you don't really have an upfront cost. There's a system already established. You actually own your own company from day one. Typically, the network marketing companies have great products like Mary Kay, great makeup, Tupperware, awesome. Kirby Vacuum, best vacuum ever, right? Some of the essential oil companies, like amazing, like there's all of them, right? And they typically have great products. There's no payroll, right? So they're not actively paying anybody because they're not employees, they're independent contractors. The whole back office is taken care of and supported by the company. So you have a whole support structure and you don't even have to pay people there. Your team doesn't work for you because they're all building their own business. And then on top of that, when you retire, your income keeps going up. It doesn't go down, and it's willable. Most of the network marketing companies, when you pass away, your family inherits the business that you built. But then the negatives are you typically have to buy a lot of product in order to be a part of the company. With Monavie, I had to sign up for a $200 a month auto shipment. So I had to spend $200 a month for 4 bottles a month just to stay a part of the company. So they forced me to buy a product just to be a part of the company. Second thing is there's low profit margins, as I mentioned with the guy making $30,000 a month on 50,000 agents. You typically have to recruit in very large numbers to make a livable income. They also typically push you to go out and sell to your friends and family. Like with Monavie, they basically gave me like a 2-minute introduction video about like what the product was in a packet. And they said, okay, call your friends and family, try to get them to buy it. And like with 2 minutes of training. And so that right there terrified me because I was scared of what in the world is my friends and family going to think of me trying to sell this to them, nor do I even want to try to sell them something. And then after friends and family don't work, then people go out and walk around the mall and Walmart and Target and try to meet people and try to get them into the business. And that's another very, very big negative. The other thing is that a lot of these companies have things where they make you like requalify for a position. Like you hit a level and then you have to at least maintain a certain standard to keep that level. And then that makes it to where you can't like fully retire. And so this is basically what Hubert drew out for Art and said, what if we created a business model that just had the positives, but you removed all the negatives of a multi-level marketing company? To where, number one, and just for anybody that's ever questioning this, number one, do you have to buy a product to be a part of this company? Not at all. Right? There's nothing that you have to buy to be here. If you do set up a product, you are also not buying a product, you're saving money. You're saving money into a retirement account for yourself or a college fund for your kids, or you're doing a retirement rollover, or you're maybe getting life insurance to protect your family. But point is that you're not actually buying anything. You're saving money, and it's something that we all need anyway. Secondly, low profit margins. We have extremely high profit margins because financial services is the most profitable industry in the world. You literally have, if you just look at our average compensation, 3,000 points per client. If you're a brand new agent, you're at a 35% contract level. It means you make $1,050 for an average client. If you're helping just a client a week, that's $55,000 a year on only one client a week. Right? You couldn't make that if you only sold one bottle of juice a week. That would be making what, like $100 a year? Right? So very, very big difference in profit margins. And because the profit margins are higher, if you chose to build an agency, which you don't have to, but if you chose to build an agency, you don't have to recruit thousands of people to make good money. So Rob Day, my personal mentor, who I was just telling you his story earlier, made over $4 million last year. He only ever personally recruited 54 people in his whole career. If you personally recruited 54 people into another multi-level marketing company, you'd be lucky to make like $1,000 a month. And he makes over $4 million a year off the agency that's built from that. But then the other one is that just for me personally, I have a total, like my entire organization, we currently have 320 licensed agents. So I have 320 licensed agents, and my income right now averages 60 to 70,000 a month. So figure I've got 320 to make 60 to 70,000 a month, whereas the guy in Monavie had 50,000 to make 30,000 a month. So you don't have to go recruit thousands of people to make a significant income if you do decide to build an agency. But what happens if you don't decide to build an agency? You can still hit our highest contract level without building a team. There's no contingency for you to build a team here if you don't want to. And we have many, many people in our company that make a 7-figure income just as great personal producers. There was a guy who was a part-time agent with us, full-time baggage handler at Southwest Airlines. He heard through the grapevine that Southwest was considering changing their 401k plan. He wasn't fully trained on how to do it. So he brought somebody else in, and he brought it to the HR manager, who brought it to their HR manager, who brought it up the chain. And they ended up landing the Southwest 401k portfolio. When that happened, his 50% split on that, because it's billions of assets, is $1.2 million a year of passive income every year from landing one account. So needless to say, he doesn't work for Southwest anymore, right? But then on the other side of that, when Rob Day earned his $1 million ring, by the way, when I say a ring, like our company gives us these like Super Bowl rings when you hit different income levels. So when Rob earned his $1 million ring, there was another agent that was getting recognized that year for his $1 million ring as well. And at that point, that was 2007. So Rob had been retired for about 6 years at that point. So the other guy that's on stage with him says, so Rob, just curious, as another $1 million a year earner with the company, what does your schedule look like? And Rob said, well, I mean, I've been retired for the most part for the last 6 years, but I typically run a training on Tuesdays, and I travel around and I go stop by offices and train some agents. He's like, why? What's your schedule like? He's like, well, I show up at the office Monday through Saturday from about 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. And then Sunday, you know, I try to take off, but a lot of times I'd have like by appointment only, and there's usually appointments that pop up. And the difference was the other gentleman that was on stage with Rob made $1 million a year, but on personal production. And that was a lot of work to make it. Whereas Rob built an agency. But the point is that either way, you can still hit a 7-figure income, but somebody can build a team, or they can be a great personal producer, and they can choose here. That was another huge, huge benefit. Next one, push to sell to friends and family. We are actually encouraged not to sell to our friends and family. And the reason is because our friends and family don't know us as a financial professional. If your background was in education or healthcare or retail, that's how your friends and family know you, and they trust you, but you don't have credibility to them as a financial professional. So if all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm licensed in the financial industry, can I roll over your 401k for you? It's like, once again, trust is there, but not credibility. And the odds of them doing something are very slim. And your friends and family don't want to be sold something. And that's why we take a training appointment approach. With a training appointment, there's no pressure for anybody to do anything. It's just designed for practice, and it's just designed to get exposure to what a new agent's doing for the purpose of helping them get referrals. But more often than not, what happens is somebody's sitting there in a training appointment, and the trainee brings trust, and the trainer has credibility. So that person's now listening. And if they see something that they need help with, then they ask for it. And it's very different if somebody asks for you to help them with something versus you trying to sell them something. Very, very big distinction there. Also, they may have to requalify. Once we hit executive vice chairman in our company, we have no standards as far as like losing our business or losing our contract level or anything like that. Once we earn it, we keep it. And that makes it to where you can fully retire here. So that's what Hubert was trying to explain to Art. It was like, hey, look, I know that network marketing companies have a bad reputation, but we're not going to make a multi-level marketing company. We're just going to take the best pieces of the multi-level marketing business structure and combine it into the financial services industry to make the best business model that exists in the US. And here's what happened. After months of Hubert trying to go over that, finally Art says, okay, I'm going to let you try it, but I don't want to taint the company name if this doesn't work. So I'm going to send you far away. And he sent him over to Colorado with one referral. That was it. That's all he had, one referral. Within 6 months, Hubert Humphrey had 1,200 sales reps in just the state of Colorado. And he had outproduced what the entire company had done in the last 3 years combined. So at that point, Art's like, okay, clearly your idea is working. We're going to go ahead and adapt this business model. So by 1987, so this is what, 7 years after that transition happened, by 1987, A.L. Williams was the largest insurance sales company in the world, passing number 1 and 2, which was New York Life and MetLife combined. And you can see on this chart right here, this is where New York Life and MetLife were at, Prudential. This was A.L. Williams' growth chart. 1983, it starts spiking. That's when the business model was adapted and started taking off. 1985, all the way up to 1989, did over $1 billion. Over $1 billion with 250,000 licensed agents, the largest insurance company to ever exist. And here's what, I'm not going to show you this whole video, but I just want you to see the introduction of this, right? So this was from
his group of national sales directors.
This is an amazing speech, by the way. If you have time to actually watch this, it's called Art Williams Just Do It. I think it's one of the best speeches of all time. But I just want you to see the introduction of this so you can realize how big this actually was.
Religious broadcaster convention and has become a classic example of Art's philosophy on winning in business. It is simply entitled, Do It. Dr. Jerry Falwell, Chancellor of Liberty University, introduces Art Williams.
15 years ago, he was a high school football coach. His wife, Angela, was teaching English in high school. He got an idea, just an idea. And 10 years ago, he turned that idea into a company, a concept, a practical concept. 10 years have passed. 150,000 people work for him now. Last year, he sold $77 billion worth of insurance. This year, $100 billion. That is more than Prudential and New York Life, number 1 and 2, combined in 10 years. He's from Monroe, Georgia. He has the dialect to prove it. He this year will sell $100 billion worth of insurance and revenues $2.5 billion. And he's just now beginning to dream, to plan, to go. Art and Angela Williams have 2 precious children, Art the third and April, their daughter. He is chairman of the inner council, the inner circle of our ministries, and a personal and a dear friend. He is a born-again Christian, as each of his family members, but he's an entrepreneur. And Dr. Armstrong has asked him to come tonight and talk to you about what he knows most and best about. And having been in one of his sales meetings last Thursday, in Palm Springs, you know, I usually go out preaching and I try to wake up religious morgues and And most of the places, a lot of the places I go don't need a revival, they need a resurrection. But he asked me to speak to his group of national sales directors, and I had to work hard at getting up where they were and not appearing as a backslidden preacher. This man, I repeat, is the leading entrepreneur in America and a friend of NRB, and I introduce you to you, Mr. Art Williams.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So just by that introduction, you can see what they accomplished in such a short period of time. And that was revolutionary. I'm talking 100 billion in sales in the 80s, right? If you factor inflation, no idea what that's even worth today. 100 billion, revenues at 2.7 billion, and something that they built in 10 years, right? But shortly after that, about 2 years after that video, is when the fallout happened. And what happened was Art was made an offer that was way too good to refuse. So Citicorp offered to buy the company from him for several $1 billion. And Art made the decision that he was going to sell the company. So he sold the company to Citicorp. Everyone familiar with that company? Yeah. All right. So he sold the company to Citicorp. Citicorp came in and changed the name to Primerica and made it more corporate. So they started saying, okay, well, you can build a team, but here's the restrictions on who you can bring in, and here's what we're looking for. And here's rules and regulations around what you can do in this, and this. Here's how you can train your teams. And they made it to where it wasn't an entrepreneurial anymore. It was corporate. And then there was a convention that was supposed to happen, and they were big on recognition. And all of a sudden this year, the CEO now of Citicorp says that, hey, we don't need to spend all this money on recognition. We're just going to recognize the top three. And one of those top three, it was his first time getting recognized. And he walked up to the microphone to try to say something. And the CEO took it and said, hey, what are you doing? Get off stage. And so literally you go from this amazing culture to a corporate structure overnight. And in that following year, after Citicorp bought them, the company production dropped by 70% in a year. 70% drop in a year. So imagine if you're a pilot on a jet plane and it's crashing, what do? You pull the eject button, right? You pull the eject switch. So all of a sudden, that's what these leaders did. So there was several leaders. You had Jack Linder, Monty Holm, Rich Stolley, and then Hubert Humphrey that decided to leave and start recreating what A.L. Williams was. And so they all left, Hubert Humphrey, Rich Stolley, Jack Linder, and Monty Holm, to recreate A.L. Williams. But what was interesting about what this led up to was the fact that back when A.L. Williams started, Art had approached a company called WRL, which is Western Reserve Life. And Western Reserve Life had declined to be A.L. Williams' insurance provider. So by declining that, you realize WRL missed out on hundreds of billions of dollars in sales. Hundreds of billions. So now you got these leaders that made up a good chunk of A.L. Williams coming to you and saying, hey, we'd like you to be our provider. We're recreating A.L. Williams. I don't think WRL even hesitated to say yes to that, right? So WRL said yes, but at the same time, they introduced new products. So they said, look, I know that your product, your company was built on buy term, invest the difference, but there's a whole bunch of other products that can be incorporated into your business model. And there's a new one, which is called a VUL, which stood for Variable Universal Life. And the whole thing was basically, instead of buying term and investing the difference, where your investment doesn't get any of the tax advantages that the insurance brings to it, what if you bought term insurance and you invested the rest inside of it? So now the mutual funds get the same tax benefits without the cost of the whole life. And so it took a while for them to get over that because of the stigma around how all cash value was bad, all cash value insurance was bad. And so initially they were completely against it. And then after understanding the product and how it was the best blend of the two worlds, they decided to also adapt that. And so they adapted that business model, became the #1 VUL sales company. But in 1991 is officially when they launched the next company, which was called WMA, which stands for World Marketing Alliance, with WRL as their primary product provider. But once again, explosiveness. Right? WMA increased WRL's production by over 700% in 3 years. So WRL had to scale. when you have that kind of increase in production, you have to hire more staff, more underwriters. You have to have a bigger office location to be able to hold everybody. And so with all of this increase in revenue, imagine you spend all this money to scale this company, and then you have this independent company that at any time could say, you know what, WRL, we're not going to do business with you anymore. We're going to go with this company. Now, if you have this influx of cash and then you invest to where it's going and all that influx stops, that's how businesses go bankrupt. And so Aegon, which was a global Fortune 500 company, ranked number 9 on the too big to fail list. And by the way, if you don't know the too big to fail list, that means that that business is so rooted in the global economy that if it failed, it would have detrimental effects on the entire global economy. That's how big Aegon is. And so Aegon owned WRL. And so here's Aegon looking at WRL's growth and realizes, oh, here's this little independent company that just scaled it. What happens if they don't do business with them anymore? We're going to lose WRL. And so Aegon offered to purchase WMA from them, World Marketing Alliance. But they just went through that, didn't they? They just went through selling to a corporate company and they saw what happened. So do you think they were just like openly receptive to, oh, let's just go ahead and sell it to Aegon? Nope. So they were very persistent and no. But finally, Aegon makes an offer that was too good to refuse in 2001. And that offer, it wasn't just about the financial support with it. That offer basically said, we are going to support you and fund you financially. We want a piece of the profit, but we're not going to control it. We're going to let you guys build and scale and do whatever you want to do. And basically, they're like the really rich parents that just wanted to like fund everything that we do, but they didn't really control what we did. And that was an offer that was too good for them. And so Aegon makes that deal. Hubert steps out of the company. And then WMA is purchased and turns into WFG, which is World Financial Group, and launches us into the next generation. So what happened after that, and this is kind of where we're at now, WFG continued to acquire partnerships with Aegon's reputation. And so more and more companies started adding their services onto our platform and made it to where, unlike Primerica, which was just selling one product, it made it to where there were dozens of companies being added. Aegon continued to invest into the growing and scaling of the company. And then Aegon decided to purchase Transamerica. And that was a huge acquisition because Aegon paid $81 billion to buy Transamerica just to establish them as our securities broker. So that's when they created TFA, which is Transamerica Financial Advisors. But WFG reached over 160 providers. We now currently have 192 product providers on our platform, and basically became what Amazon is for retail is what we became for financial services. 192 product providers, the best of the best in the industry, all in one place. We became the top 1% in all insurance brokerages. TFA became the #1 employer of women in the financial industry. And WFG will be the largest and best financial firm in history. It's going to pass what A.O. Williams did. And so here's the part that brought so much just trust and love and respect to the leaders that started this, was that the cost of starting WMA, just the compensation software alone, the software that pays us and tracks everything, costed over $9 million to create. Establishing the back office and hiring the support staff was over $3 million upfront initial investment. And then the legal expenses, all 4 of these guys got sued for pretty much everything that they had because Citicorp obviously wasn't okay with them stepping out and recreating it. So Citicorp came out with that lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, trying to sue them and stop it from working. But here's the craziest part. The founders had to sign a document to get a loan big enough to fund all of this. And that document basically stated that they were going to put everything they owned as collateral. Their houses, their cars, up to and including their wedding rings. Everything they owned was put as collateral to start this company. And they signed that document that if WMA failed, they would literally lose everything. The craziest part about it, though, is that the founders gave themselves the exact same contracts that we have. They didn't build in a profit share from the company. They weren't going to take any sort of profit sharing off of the revenue that was made from the organization. They were just going to get paid off of building a team, just like all of us do. So the part that is mind-blowing to me is the fact that what we pay $125 for, that background check, that agent ID processing, the administrative and compliance fees, that $125, what we pay $125 for, these four gentlemen put everything on the line for. And so imagine, like, if you had everything on the line, how would you treat this versus if you had $125 on the line? And that I have so much respect for that, because what I paid $125 for, they put everything at risk for to make this work and to create a place where people could have an opportunity to win. I have so much respect for that, about where we came from. So point is, don't treat this like a $125 business, right? Treat this like everything's on the line, because this literally is the best. I have compared this against so many companies. There is not a single company that comes remotely close to the business opportunity that we have here. These founders created the best opportunity that you could possibly have. And I'm so grateful for that. But just to make sure there's no confusion on the layout of the company, right? You have Aegon, which is the parent company. Aegon owns Transamerica Financial Advisors and World Financial Group. If you just have your insurance license is held with World Financial Group. If you have a securities license, your securities license is held with Transamerica Financial Advisors. So that's our insurance broker and our securities broker. Then, very similar to real estate, if somebody started off in real estate, they might start off as an agent, but eventually they can open their own agency, right? So in order to become what's called a co-branded company, your agency, your team needs to do 50 million a year in revenue. And so Pinnacle Elite is our agency, and currently Pinnacle does over 200 million a year in revenue. That's owned by Eric Olson, who is our executive chairman. He's one of our great leaders within our organization. Limitless is my team, and that is our hierarchy and our system that we have. That's our training system, the support system that we have. That's all these teams combined. That's what makes up Limitless. And then as you have individual senior marketing directors promote, then you have teams. So you've got New Heights, Ascending, Ladder, Paramount, Freedom, Ascending, Ascending Elite, and then Imperium. Right. So these are just some of the teams that have branched out off of the organization. So as I mentioned, some of you might be on Paramount, right? But just know Paramount is your team, but you're also a part of Limitless as your hierarchy and system, and Pinnacle is the co-branded company. TFA and WFG is your brokers, and then Aegon is the parent company. So it's a conglomerate. There's a lot going on there, but I want you to understand the structure of it. So in order for Limitless to become a co-brand, where we basically replace Pinnacle's spot on this, is to hit 50 million a year in revenue. And we're about 3 years away from being there. So in about 3 years, Limitless will become a co-branded company. And then I haven't seen any hands go up yet, but any questions over anything that we've covered so far? Go ahead, Blake.
I was just wondering what's the difference if, as soon as we make the company, your team makes 50 million, you become co-branded. What's the difference between where we're at now and where we might be in 3 years?
That's a great question. So the biggest difference in that is public, right? So publicly, we are Pinnacle Elite, because you can't use your team name with the public until you become a co-brand. And so that's where, like, when somebody's a part of our agency, like they are a part of Limitless and our training program and all that. But when we're representing our products to a client, we can't say that we're an agent with Limitless. We say we're an agent with Pinnacle. That's a great question. That's the benefit of becoming a co-brand, is that you can publicly use your name. Any other questions on any of that? Okay. So I'm about to go into the system, but before I go into the system, the most important thing that everybody starts off with is getting your license, right? Obviously, you're not payable until you're licensed, and that is the most important thing that you can knock out. I know it's not the most fun and thrilling thing in the world to study for, but it is 100% worth it to knock it out. And really all it is, it's an 82 question multiple choice quiz that you have to get a C- on. But just to walk through the licensing process real quick before we go into our system. The first step of licensing is doing your pre-licensing course. It's either done through ExamFX or Excel testing solutions, and the cost ranges from $25 to $30. But that study material, I think the part that people get tripped up on the most is that there is a lot of information in there, and you don't need to know everything that's on the test. You don't need to know everything that's in that pre-licensing material. A lot of what you're going to learn about this industry is going to be from actually doing it and being involved in our training process. The licensing material is just what the state wants you to know to have the license. So my biggest advice as you're going through the testing material is don't sit there and spend hours and hours and hours trying to read and memorize everything. ExamFX and Excel testing solutions made pre-licensing tests, pre-tests that are very similar to the exact questions that you're going to see on your state exam. The best way to get through the license is to just read through the material, but don't worry about memorizing everything. Watch the videos. The videos are the best. But get to the practice test and just take the practice test over and over and over, because if you fail it, you know what's great? It pops up with all the right answers. It tells you what all the right answers are, and you just learn from taking the practice tests. So just take the practice test over and over and over again. And then once you get to the last section, they have this, it's like a 100 question guarantee exam. And it's still a practice exam. It doesn't count towards anything. But when you pass that with more than 80%, they guarantee that you're going to pass. And their guarantee is the fact that if you fail, they're going to reimburse your licensing test, your testing fee. That's how confident they are in their pre-licensing material, that they guarantee that you will pass or they will refund you for it. Now, if you do, for whatever reason, fail, it's okay, because now you know what's on the test. You got refunded for it, and you can just go take it again. But now you know what's on it, so you're going to pass. Right? The biggest thing, like, I know some people have testing anxiety and they're scared of it. Don't be scared of it. It's very, very simple to get through, as long as you don't try to focus on memorizing everything. That's where it comes to be very complex. But the most important part, the questions that are asked are very simple. It's just terminology. So as long as you learn the terminology, it's very easy to just read the question and know what the answer is off of it. Other important testing tips: when in doubt, go with the longest answer. Typically, the longest answer is the most descriptive and the right one. And then also go with your gut instinct. The other biggest issue is people choose an answer and then they go back and change it. But really the one that they chose was the right one. So don't second guess yourself. Go with your gut instinct is another very, very important one. And then if you're finding that all of the questions are the same, I mean, all the answers are the same length and you can't choose, then just pick a letter that you're going to choose for all those questions. Whether it's B or C or A or D, just pick a consistent letter that you're going to get for any ones that you truly can't figure out and there's no length difference on it. So that way you at least got a shot at getting 25% of them right. But all you need is a C- to pass, a 70%. Unless you're in California, then you need a 60%. Right? So California lets you pass with a D-. But outside of that, every other state, C-. Nevada, if you are in Nevada, you do need an 80% to pass. That's the highest pass rate. So pre-licensing, don't let it scare you. Go through it as quickly as you can, knock out that test as quickly as you can. And we have a huge incentive to where if you pass your test within your first 2 weeks of being in business with us, you actually become eligible to skip your first promotion and get a 40% pay raise before you're even licensed. All right, so there's a great, great opportunity to knock it out quickly. So that's the first step. After your pre-licensing, agent engagement, right? This is where you want to just make sure that you're focused on going through your first 3 training appointments. You want to attend Tuesday team calls. And then if you're taking an agency building path, you want to find a first business partner, even if it's just somebody that wants to get paid to send referrals to you. But also, this is where we as leaders, you as your trainers want to be able to give you as much encouragement through that process as possible, right? Because we know it's not fun. It's easy to procrastinate. And that's where we really want to help encourage you and help you get through that licensing process. But also, if you have questions through that process, make sure to reach out so that we can help you with it. Now, on your test date, A lot of teams have you test in person. If you need to, there is remote testing available. It's just, there's so many issues with it that we try not to do remote testing. But you can do a proctored remote exam. It's just, if they catch you looking off to the side, they might disqualify you because they think you're looking at notes on the wall or something like that. So there's been agents that have been disqualified for their tests for the silliest things. So I would highly recommend taking it in person if possible. If not, remote testing is a possibility. But the ops team and your team leader are going to send you a message of encouragement on the day of your test and follow up with you right after to make sure you pass. And if you didn't pass, like I said, it's okay. You should just take it again. Don't get discouraged. Just go take it again, especially if you're going to get refunded for it. But also we want to help you with understanding what your next steps are after you pass the test, right? So for that test date, just remember those little testing tips I told you, but also make sure that you bring 2 forms of identification. So you want to make sure you bring a driver's license and a credit card or something else with you that can identify you, but you need 2 forms of identification, and you'll also need to print out your certificate. So on your Excel testing or Exam FX, there's going to be a certificate that unlocks once you pass the final practice exam. When you get that certificate, you want to take a screenshot of it, print it out, right? Or they actually just have an option that says print. So print it out and then make sure you take that along with the 2 identification forms to the testing center. Don't pull a me, where on my first day going to test, I actually went out and I showed up for my test. I showed up 40 minutes before, and you have to be there 30 minutes before for mine at the time. I think it's 10 minutes before now, but at the time it was 30 minutes before. So I showed up 40 minutes before. I had my 2 forms of ID, and then they asked for my pre-licensing certificate. And I said, I don't have it on me. I said, well, you can't test. I said, can I use your computer and printer to print it off? And they said, no. So I was like, what do I do then? Like, well, there's a hotel across the street. If you can get over there, print it and get back in time, we'll still let you test. So I darted out of there. I sprinted, got into my car, drove across the street, literally opened the door, ran inside. I didn't even close my car door. That's how big of a rush I was in. My car door is wide open. I run into the hotel. I'm like, hey, where's your computer? I run over, I print it. I got back with 30 seconds to spare. But then I sit down in the testing room and I'm like, out of breath, and I've got the adrenaline pumping and all that. That was not a good way to start my test. So just make sure you bring that with you and bring those 2 forms of identifications. But after you pass your test, your next step is going to be fingerprinting. Now, not all states require fingerprinting, so check with your licensing coordinator to make sure fingerprinting is required for your state. But if so, your licensing coordinator will either help you with that, or some teams have an automated system where you can see what your next steps are, and you can just choose the option to book your fingerprinting if that's the next step for you. So fingerprinting. After you do your fingerprinting, then you apply for your license, and that's going to be done through NIPR. Also on those forms or with your licensing coordinator that'll help you with this, but you apply for your license. Once your license is approved, then you're going to do your agent agreement. And your agent agreement is going to be the contract that appoints you with the 192 different companies that we work with and officially sets you up in the system. Now, once your agent agreement is set up, you're going to have your final steps, which is accessing mywfg.com to be able to set up your errors and omissions insurance, which is very similar to like malpractice insurance that a doctor or a lawyer would carry. We are required by law to carry a $2 million E&O policy that protects our clients. So you'll be setting up your E&O policy, your direct deposit, so that your checks can just get directly deposited into your bank account. You'll also be doing your appointment requests. And then there's a couple of required courses like your anti-money laundering course, your annuities training course, long-term care training course. So just some other last little courses that you have to take to be official. And then the last piece is becoming a net license, which is once you're approved and have access to WFG and E&O and all that kind of stuff, our goal is to make sure that you help your first family and you make your first $1,000 in commissions. And when you make your first 1,000, we recognize you as a net license. And when you become a net license, that's when we take you to boot camp, which is an in-person 4-day experience where we can train really well online, but we build relationships in person. And so that's your first opportunity to get together in person with leadership and be able to really just learn a crash course of our system in 4 days. And then everything's paid for that with your lodging and your food and the activities and all that kind of stuff. The only thing is just you getting here. But that's kind of the flow of licensing. Any questions on that process before we go to our system? Go ahead, Stephanie.
Hi, Nick. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. You?
Okay, so I've talked to you just a little bit because I've been with the group for a while and I wanted to do this class over again, but I'm disabled and I cannot travel. So I know that you have all these training programs. You guys just had, the Prosperity Bowl and you had the CFT recruits there and stuff. And I know that you guys taped a part of the Prosperity Bowl. Is there any other suggestion that you have? I mean, I cannot go by plane. I cannot travel far in a car. I don't drive much. I go nowhere.
Great question. So yes, everything that we have, even FCL can be streamed. So like when you qualify for FCL, you can jump on the streaming. Prosperity Bowl, we live cast it for everybody as well. So they can jump on Zoom. We also have the recording from that as well. So yes, everything is recorded. So in your situation, you're not going to miss out on anything. You still have opportunities. We just need to communicate on it.
Okay. And where would I go to watch those?
So FCL is live. So if you qualified for FCL, then on the next one, which I think is February 9th to the 12th, then you can just let us know and we'll let you attend virtually.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. All right, any other questions over the licensing process? Okay, so going back to the system now. So just your training program. So that's licensing. That's the very first thing you got to focus on. Make sure you knock that out as soon as possible. Blake, go ahead. You're on mute still.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. I just realized I was still on mute. There was a question in chat. It says, what are some of the costs associated with the steps that we just went through in that slide?
They all vary by state. So it depends on what state you're in, but usually it's somewhere between $250 to $400 total for your license. So with your licensing team, whoever your licensing coordinator is, they have all the detailed cost of your state specifically, but it's whatever your state charges for licensing is what you'll pay. All right. So WFG as a whole has a 6-step system, and this is designed to be a very, very simple and duplicatable system that makes it to where when we run this system, we never have to make a cold call. We never have to go door knocking. We never have to buy a lead. The majority of this industry, that is how they operate. We have people that have transferred to our team from other companies, and one of them said at their former company, they had to make 300 cold calls a day just to stay a part of their company. That was their quota, 300 cold calls a day. And they said they would generate about 2 to 4 appointments off of the 300 calls. Other companies make you buy leads from them. So you have to purchase leads from the company and then you call leads, which basically is a cold call, but the difference is somebody Google searched for something and then their information got sold. That's typically what those leads are. And then we also had an agent transfer to us from Edward Jones, and we've had a few transfer to us from Edward Jones. But they told me in their first 9 months that they were required to knock on 1,000 doors. Right. And so in 9 months, they had to knock on 1,000 doors to get exposure. And I can't imagine that's fun going out and having the door slammed in your face 1,000 times. But thankfully, we don't do any of that. My 9 years here, I've never made a cold call. I've never gone door knocking. I've never bought a lead. 100% of our business is entirely built through referrals and through warm markets where there's always trust involved. And so that goes because of our 6-step system, which is prospecting, approach and contact, presentation, follow-up, startup, and duplication. So prospecting is simply where do our clients come from? Where do our leads come from, right? So our leads don't come from purchasing them or cold calls or door knocking. Our leads who we deal with comes from, number one, referrals. When we deal with a client, we don't charge anything for our financial strategies. Everything that we do for our client, the plans that we build, the education we provide, everything that we do for them is free for them because we're paid by the companies that we're placing them with. All right. So because that's free, there are some companies that build the same exact type of plans that we do that charge $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 just to meet with the client to do it. And we don't charge anything for it. But the only thing we ask is for referrals because we work on a referral-based system. So on average, and you'll learn how to be able to get those referrals and how we do that. right? But on average, there's usually about 10 referrals that we get for each client that we help. From those 10 referrals, usually 4 of them actually end up sitting down with us and 2 of them move forward with some sort of financial plan. That turns into 20 and then 8 and then 4 and then 40, 16 and then 8, and it kind of continues to compound, staying in a referral market. The other thing is that we have referral agents, people that are licensed that just want to send clients to us. And when you run appointments that are from a referral agent, the referral agent gets 50%, but you also get 50%. But 50% of a whole bunch of things is better than 100% of nothing. And it can bring up some consistent business. The last thing is that when you become a certified field trainer, you'll be in a position to run matchup appointments, where as new agents come in and they're setting up training appointments, as overflow appointments are there, people can book appointments on your calendar and match appointments up to you. It's the same thing where it's 50-50, but 50% of a whole bunch of things is better than 100% of nothing. And that's where consistency comes in your income. Blake, go ahead.
I was just wondering, for the referral agent, is there essentially an associate agent or something along those lines that just gives referrals?
Yeah, they get their license. And once they have their license, then they can just refer clients to us and they get 50-50. So the second step of this is approaching contact. And that's how we set appointments. And what's amazing is we have very, very simple scripts. And some people like scripts, some people don't like scripts, but they're very effective. The Ethor script, which I think most of you have learned already, and if you haven't, you will learn it in your startup appointment, which should be very, very soon. The Ethor script literally has almost a 100% appointment setting ratio, right? So 100%. The 3 Good Quality script has about an 85% success rate. Our referral scripts have about a 60-70% success rate. So there's very, very effective scripts where we don't have to make a ton of phone calls to set appointments, which is another great thing. And so that's also a very structured, systematized thing, is our scripts around the approach and contact. But the whole goal of the approach and contact is to set a meeting. And the meeting could be a one-on-one meeting where we're meeting with that person one-on-one. It could be a corporate overview. So we have daily corporate overviews where we go over our company overview every single day. We also have Thursday financial webinars where we actually teach financial concepts. So you can invite guests to any number of those. And that's the presentation step. They've seen who we are and what we do and how we help people and finding out if they need help with anything. And then step 4 is the follow-up. So somebody comes to the presentation, they find an interest in something, and then they set a follow-up, which would either be a follow-up as a client, or if they're looking at this as a business opportunity, then the follow-up would be an interview. And then after somebody onboards with us, then the next step is the startup, which is where we start them and teach them the training process and get them set up so that they can learn this industry. And then the last step is just keep repeating this process until it duplicates and that person knows how to do it. So that's the WFG 6-step system. But then we have the limitless subsystems that tie into that. And so the subsystems, the flow of what this looks like is that this first part's a little messy because all of this ties in together, right? So you have an initial overview, which could be any one of those presentations. And that initial overview is either going to result in somebody being interested in coming in business with us or somebody wanting to be a client with us, right? And so if they are interested in coming to business with us, then they come through their interview first. And then afterwards, they typically want to see more about what we do for clients. And then they go through their personal financial review second. Other times, somebody might come in for a personal financial review, love what we do, and want to start as a referral agent or something, in which case they do their follow-up interview. If nothing's resulting from the initial overview, then we still pull referrals, which sends us back to an initial overview and the process kind of repeats. But after somebody's started with us, here's kind of the journey that you're going to go through here. First thing is attending team trainings. The most important training that you can attend is your Tuesday nights. Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m. Central Time is where you're going to learn every single step of this business, right? There's other trainings each week. There's literally trainings every single day. But if you attend all of them, it's going to be very overwhelming. We typically recommend as a brand new agent, 2 trainings a week, Tuesday night, and then you pick one other one a week. Where I personally would start is Tuesday and watching the Thursday financial webinars first so you can get a little bit more of the financial education. And then after you've seen all the financial webinars, then start incorporating into what's called a net MDT meeting, which is where your marketing director runs a weekly meeting. And that's designed to really teach you more on like role play and skill development. And it's a more intimate group that really allows you guys to build and develop skill sets. All right, so that's team trainings. Then you have your licensing meeting, which is where you get set up on your pre-licensing course, get your test date scheduled, all that. And then you have your startup appointment, which is where your trainer is mapping out what your next steps look like and helping you set up your first 3 training appointments. So then you go through your 3 training appointments, and the goal is to be able to get your Fast Start Award, which is where you've had your own personal financial review. You have your test scheduled within 2 weeks. You also have your first 3 appointments within your first 7 days, and you pass your interview, obviously. But then you also get a business partner. It could even be a referral partner within your first 30 days in business. So from that, you get a Fast Start Award. And then also at that point, you'd be earning your associate promotion, which is that 40% pay raise because you completed that accelerated promotion guideline. If not, then once you're licensed, you just need to be able to submit 5 pieces of business. So you need to help 5 clients that are submitted and paid out, and then you would get the associate promotion that way. Now, the next piece is you finish your first 3, you got your license. Now you need to get your next 7 training appointments so that you hit 10 training appointments. We want you to see 10 live interactions. Once you've seen 10 live interactions, then you also have your business plan meeting with your SMD. Some base shops, some of our, I'm using a term that you guys don't know yet. Base shop is just when you're a senior marketing director, anybody on your team that's not a senior marketing director yet is your base shop, that's your agency. So some senior marketing directors choose to meet with their new agents after they've completed 10 training appointments, and others do it after they've done their first 3 and before they do their next 7. So just find out when your senior marketing director does the business plan. But that's where you'll have your business plan and strategy meeting with your upline senior marketing director. From there, you'll have a grand opening, which is just a celebratory way to launch your business and get a lot of exposure in a short period of time. Also around that point is when you should be becoming a net license, because you've now been licensed for about a month at that point. And so you should have your first couple of things paying out and become a net license. And after that, you get to attend that first class leadership boot camp, which is that in-person experience that I was telling you about, to be able to really spend 4 days with your leadership and learn everything in just a condensed weekend. And then you're going to go through a class called CFT Academy. And that's designed to teach you how to be certified to do this on your own. Because sometimes the question is like, just because I have a license, does that mean I can go help people? It's like, no, not exactly. It means you're payable. But after you're licensed, you still have to get certified. And that is the process that I told you that used to take 12 to 18 months to get to. But now it only takes 3 to 4 months because of that academy. And it runs every quarter. So every quarter, there's a new CFT Academy that you can go through. It's going to teach you everything start to finish that you need to know to succeed in this industry. After CFT Academy, you should be getting your junior CFT and CFT certifications. And then you'll go through CFT Academy as what we call a CFT Plus, which is where we put you in a leadership position. So now you get to teach others how to become a CFT, and that's your first leadership role within the team. Around that time is also when you should be getting your senior associate promotion. And then you can go through EFT Academy, which teaches you the last certification, which is where you can help advanced clients. That's where you can help high net worth clients and business owners doing key employee policies, executive bonuses, doing benefits for corporations. All of that you'll learn in EFT, but also it's an advanced leadership course as well. So how to run a business. Around that time, you should be becoming a marketing director, which is your first level of becoming like an actual business owner. And then you get your EFT certification. And at that point, you get plugged into an academy called NLA, which is Next Level Academy. And that's held with Eric Olson with Pinnacle Elite. And that's designed to take you from MD to SMD, how you can run your own agency. Right. And then also around that point is when you should have at least made $50,000 in income from the company, and the company sends you a watch for it. So it's called the $50,000 Success Society watch. So you get a watch for hitting your 50,000 income mark. Now your focus, if you took the agency building path, is that you're a marketing director. And in order to hit SMD, you want to build 2 marketing directors. So you basically teach 2 people how to do exactly what you just did. And then you become a senior marketing director. Once you're in SMD, you can go through Growth Academy, which is going to take you from SMD to EMD to CEO to EVC to SEVC and teaches you how to climb all the way to the top of the company. Also, around the time you plug into Growth Academy, you should have at least made $100,000 in the year. And then you just keep duplicating this process as far as you want to go. And there's no caps on your income. So it is a lot. There's a lot of steps here. But at the same time, it's very, very structured as far as always knowing what your next step is. And there should never be a question of what you need to focus on next. And so with that, the training process to get you to CFT, realistically, about 4 months, right? 4 to 6 months is about the ballpark of when you should be a certified field trainer. That's also typically the point where people are starting to make a very consistent income. And depending on what your income is currently at your job, if you're starting full-time, usually that 4 to 6 month mark is where you can start to replace your income, right? So 4 to 6 months to start replacing it, 6 to 9 month mark is where you should become full-time. And then obviously after that, pretty shortly after, within 3 to 6 months, you should be getting your senior marketing director promotion and making at least 100,000 in income with us. Right, and so that is the process of our subsystems. But then the last couple things to go over. Go ahead. It says Olivia, but I know you're not Olivia.
Sorry. I was just curious for like the couples. So when she hits her promotions, I get promoted, or do I still do all the promotion stuff myself too?
It depends. So there's multiple ways to do that. We have power couples where basically one person's in like the business role and the other's in a supportive role, in which case, no, just one gets the promotions. And then obviously they're just building under the same code number. If they are building separately, but still together as a team, then they would need to independently hit the promotion levels. So that would just be a good strategy question. So if you want to meet with your upline marketing director or senior marketing director, they can strategize what would be the best route for you guys. Great question. All right, here's a good thing to take a screenshot of. Here is your actual training program, the Tuesday night training program, start to finish. So your very first Tuesday, you'll go through financial orientation, right? So financial orientation is a basic class that teach you a little bit about a lot, right? So it's going to teach you a little bit about all the things that we do for clients. Now, class 2, licensing, we actually consolidated that into this class here. So you don't have to go through the licensing class anymore. But after you go through financial orientation, you're going to go through this steps right here. So prospecting, scripting, the one-on-one, burgers, shakes, and fries, which is a funny name, but it's really just teaching you the core products of our company. IUL 101, Term and Everest, FIA 101, Tech Orientation, and Crusade. So these classes right here rotate. So depending on when you come into the system, so let's say that you went through financial orientation, but then your second week showing up on Tuesday, it was FIA 101. Well, then you would go through FIA 101, then Tech Orientation, then Crusade, then Prospecting, Scripting 101, Burger, Shakes, and Fries, IUL, Terminal B, and Everest, and then you would enter the main training. So all of those rotate each week, every Tuesday, and depending on where you come in, you'll just go through the following ones to get back to there, and then you'll join the main training. Right, so those are all your breakout classes. So figure it takes about 3 months to get through all of the trainings, and then you'll enter the main training, which is where you're going to get a new topic every Tuesday. There's always something new and exciting to learn, and that's what that Tuesday training is designed for. So that's the most important training because it's going to teach you the whole system. Now, outside of that, I mentioned that goal is attend about 2 trainings a week. So Tuesday, but I would also start off with the Thursday financial webinars. So those financial webinars, we have a webinar called the Universal Bank, also it was referred to as the Family Bank, but the Universal Bank financial webinar teaches about an amazing strategy to be able to be independent and how to be able to get off the bank and how to build wealth tax-free and have a tax-free retirement and all that. $1 Million Baby teaches how to be able to set up basically an enhanced college fund without the restrictions of a 529B. The Truth About the 401k just teaches really all the ins and outs behind the scenes of the 401k, but also some alternative options to use. And then we also run one special webinar every month where there's a rotating topic like getting out of debt or how to buy a home or how to pay off your mortgage early, or there's a tax planning workshop. And so we always rotate like a special webinar in every month just to provide financial education to our agents and also our clients. All of those are available if you go to the team website, which is limitless-ld.com. You'll be able to see all of the workshops that you can register for and where that's located is. If you don't have access to this, the first time you jump on here, it's going to ask you to sign up. It usually takes 24 to 48 hours to get your membership approved. But once it's approved, you'll have access in here. But if you just click on Zoom links, and then you click where it says Thursday trainings, you'll see it pops up with the webinars for the month. So the Universal Bank, the $1 Million Baby, the Truth About the 401k, and then you can just click on it. So let's say you wanted to attend Truth About the 401k this Thursday. You just click on it, register, and then it's going to email you the link to attend. For your Tuesday trainings, all of you should be added to a GroupMe. If you're not in GroupMe, make sure to request that your trainer adds you to GroupMe. But your communication through GroupMe will tell you where your trainings are at. So depending on what team you're on, your Tuesdays will take place in its own Zoom room. But that's always posted in your team GroupMe. The first Tuesday of each month, we do what's called an all hierarchy team call, which is where all the teams come together on my personal Zoom room, the one you're on right now, and we're all together as a hierarchy for the first Tuesday of each month. And that's always the one where we go over all the recognition for the month, the announcements, the new contests. And we have a huge contest that's rolling out on our next all hierarchy call, which I'm very, very excited for. So that's kind of the process of the Tuesdays. For the academies, when it comes time for you to register for the academies, very similar to how like that whole train people online, build people in person. Each of the academies, CFT, EFT, NLA, GA, they're all broken into a 3-month course. And so they start on, they're usually on Saturdays, but it goes from Saturday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. And it's every other Saturday. So basically when you start on the class, you start and you'd go through class 1, and then every other week would be another class for a total of 6 classes, 12 weeks. At the end of that, when you graduate, we take you on a retreat. So CFT retreat, we always do in Nashville. And that's really just, it's a very special retreat. It's usually something that really just, it opens people's eyes to just the culture and the system that we have here. But CFT Academy, we do a lot of fun things for that. But, you know, somehow like if you get free food, you know how it tastes better than food you paid for. You know, somehow like the free trips just are a little bit more fun than trips that you pay for. And so getting to just graduate and celebrate with all your other classmates is always a fun experience. But EFT Academy, we do a destination retreat. So we did Puerto Rico for the last one. The one before that, we did Gatlinburg, we did Orlando, the one that's starting up next weekend. All the graduates will be taking on a cruise, right? So we always go somewhere really, really fun for EFT retreat. NLA and GA are always combined retreats, but that's also in a destination, and that's at a 5-star location every time. So this time, all the graduates are in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico for the retreat this time, but we were just in Cabo San Lucas. So you don't have to travel. You don't have to go on the retreats if you don't like traveling. But if you do like traveling, it's a great opportunity to get together with the team in person and just celebrate your wins as you go through the system, right? And so that's the academies that you'll be going through. And then the last couple of things I want to close out on is just our vision, right? So our 10-year vision is that we as a team are going to help over 250,000 families by 2030, just our team alone. And with that, we're also going to have independent senior marketing directors in all 50 states by 2030. So we're going to have independent agency owners in all 50 states by 2030. So we're currently in all 50 states, but now the next thing is having agency owners in all 50 states. We will be $1 billion a year team by 2030. And something that are important about our culture is that we have a vision of making sure that we build strong marriages. We talk about the 5 F's, which is faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. And with faith, biggest thing there is the fact that for everybody, faith means something different, right? But we have a very inclusive faith culture, and we definitely put faith first in everything that we do. Family, obviously, is the second priority. Business should come third. And that's where a lot of companies have that backwards, where they prioritize the company first. But it's faith first, family second, business third, and then fitness and fun, and prioritizing all 5 F's in our life. And so a big part of that is strong marriages. We build legacies. We allow people the opportunity to dream again. You know, so many times people just stop dreaming in their early 20s, and they just kind of get caught up just getting by, you know, and it's called the 40-40-40 plan, where we work 40 years for 40 hours a week to hopefully retire on 40% of our income. And something that was very important to me was that when I started here, I didn't really dream big. And then I went to a really, really good meeting where Sandra Olson, which is Eric's wife, she got up on stage and she said some very very interesting things that I had never heard before. And the first thing she said, because I had an association, and I don't know if anybody can relate to this, and I want to stop the share for a minute. I had an association where basically like making a lot of money somehow seemed like a bad thing. And so I didn't have an association where like, yeah, I'm driven to go out and make a lot of money. And then I go to this meeting and Sandra said, if you don't think that you need to make more money, you've never experienced what it's truly like to give it away. And that one hit me. And then she said, who in here can name at least 2 of your great-great-grandparents? And I'm just curious on this call, who can name at least 2 of your great-great-grandparents? A few, right? Nobody in that room's hand went up though. And then Sandra said, do you think the Rockefeller family can name their great-great-great-great-great-grandfather? Yes, why? Because of the legacy that he built and what he was able to leave behind. She said, there's 2 dates on your tombstone, the day of your birth and the day of your death, but the most important part is the dash in the middle that represents your life and everything you accomplished while you were here. What you do with that dash matters. Do you feel comfortable knowing that 100 years after your death, that you die twice? You die your physical death, and then the last time is the last time somebody ever mentions your name. Do you feel comfortable knowing that 100 years after your death, that it'd be like you were never here in the first place? It's like these things just really got me thinking about things I had never thought about before. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily care at the time. I didn't care about leaving a whole bunch of money to my family. But I did want to leave values. And I was thinking about ways that I could do that. And so just to kind of talk to you about just my dream and what I'm setting up is when I grew up, I was in Baltimore, Maryland, I was in Tampa, Florida, and then I was in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and then I was also in Nashville, Tennessee. So a lot of different places, but I grew up around a lot of lower income families. And a lot of my friends lived in Section 8 housing. And Section 8 housing is not a solution, by the way. Like it's a decent like temporary Band-Aid, but it's not a solution. And the reason is because they're told if they make too much money that they're going to lose their house. So what does that cause them to do? Not want to make a change, not go make more money, because then they're going to lose their house. And so it keeps them there and keeps them dependent on our government. And so what I'm creating is a program called Debt Freedom Housing. And Debt Freedom Housing is a program to allow families that are struggling financially the ability to move into homes that are paid for them. And instead of paying for rent and utilities and all that, they take what they would be paying in rent and utilities and apply it towards paying off their debt, getting out of building up a college fund for their kids, building up a fully established emergency fund, right? Starting to save for retirement. And the only stipulation of them living in the home is that they have to meet with a financial counselor that's going to be provided for them for free every other week to make sure they're actually following the plan. But as long as they're following the plan, then I don't care whether it takes a year or 3 years or 5 years. When they move out of Debt Freedom Housing, their credit's going to be fully built. They'll have a fully established emergency fund. They're going to be able to buy a home. Their kids are going to be able to go to college and not start the debt cycle all over again because they'll be able to graduate completely debt-free. They'll have a retirement plan in place, and we completely change that family multi-generationally from that one program. My first project is going to be in Nashville, and it's going to cost a little over $8 million to build. So now that first project, I'm funding entirely out of my own pocket. I'm not going to raise any money for it because I want to show, first off, how much I believe in it. Second, I want to show proof of concept and that it works. And then from there, I'm going to start raising money. And in my lifetime, we will have debt freedom housing in every major city across the United States and start to expand globally. And that's going to make an impact that is going to help thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And what will my family remember me for? Somebody that loved people and somebody that wanted to make a difference in the world and that anything was possible if you put your mind to it. That is the legacy that I'm going to leave behind. And that's what my family will remember me for. And so with that, just know, like, are you comfortable knowing that, hey, if I just spent 40 years at a job and say you spent 40 years working for Microsoft, well, all right. What did you do? What did great-great-grandfather do? He worked for Microsoft. I was like, it's okay. He got by. He paid the bills. He had a good life. But what was the legacy that we left behind? And I think that's the most important purpose we have here, is to build a legacy and impact future generations. The difference that we can make in that dash while we have it. And so as you go through this, like, I didn't start off with that mindset. I started off thinking that making $10,000 a month was a lot of money. And now I'm at a point where we make $60,000 to $70,000 a month and I don't feel successful. And the reason I don't feel successful is because my first project is going to cost over $8 million. So now $60,000 to $70,000 a year doesn't seem like a lot of money anymore. Or $60,000 to $70,000 a month doesn't seem like a lot of money anymore. Right. And so that's the difference. Your mindset and your identity with money is going to change and evolve as you go through training here and as you're around this culture, because you're going to start dreaming bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what we allow here, is people to dream again and people to build legacies. And I love knowing that everything that I've built here in the last 9 years, even if I passed away tomorrow, my family will inherit what I've built. And that it wasn't something that was just for me. It was something that's going to impact my family generationally, right? So I challenge you to think bigger. I challenge you to dream, right? I challenge you to focus on a legacy that you want to leave behind, right? Because we have a culture of being a blessing onto others and giving back, right? We are world changers and history makers. And if you knew all of the dreams that this team has and what they're going to accomplish, we are going to make a global impact, not just on financial planning, global impact to the charities that we set up and how we give back. We are going to have a massive impact on this whole world through this team. And I can't wait to see what you all, as new agents coming in, come up with as far as how you're going to give back. That's the most important part, right? We're going to be the #1 team in the entire financial services industry. But also know we are all one team, right? Even though we're all part of different teams within Limitless, we're all one team with one vision and we're all in alignment. We're independent, but in alignment. We have a very competitive culture. We're very competitive. We have a lot of contests and stuff like that. But at the same time, we're never combative. And I love that. That's a rare culture to find because of the fact that somebody can compete with another person, but if they need help, they still help them. That's so rare to find. And that's something that's very, very deep within our culture. We honor our spouse and we have a culture of putting family first. We put integrity first and we'll always do what's right for our client. We have a commitment to excellence and strive to be better each day. You know, if we got 1% better each day for 100 days, we're going to be 100% better, right? We never pass judgment onto others. We always go up if we ever have a problem. We never go sideways. We have a strong culture of putting faith first. We're a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and we never leave a family behind, and we'll always put mission before commission. Right? That's what we stand for as a team. Some expectations that we have from you is, #1, we request that you are on time for meetings. So be on time for meetings. If it starts at 6:30, please be on at 6:30. Please also attend Tuesday trainings and special academies and stuff like that with your cameras on. You don't have to have cameras on for Thursday night. You don't have to have cameras on for the other trainings of the week, but you do have to have your camera on for Tuesday. Right. And the reason that's so important to us is because, first off, when we do everything virtually, right, we want to make sure that as much as possible, we still have that in-person experience. If we can't see everybody, if we just see a whole bunch of blank names, it's just training to a whole bunch of names. Right. But also, if you're going to become a CFT on the team and people are going to start using you for matchup appointments, they need to know who you are. And if you never have your camera on, people don't know who you are and they're not going to use you for matchups, since you're marketing yourself on every meeting. Right. So with that, make sure to dress professionally, right? We are a financial services company, right? So don't jump on in like a tank top or torn up. Well, I guess you can wear torn up jeans because no one can see what you're wearing. But anyway, just make sure business professional on the top. That's the most important part, just because we are in a very professional industry and we don't want a brand new agent jumping on a call and seeing somebody laying in bed shirtless, right? So just respecting the fact that, hey, we want to dress professionally, have a clean background. Right. So just make sure that your background is not like unprofessional. That's the best way to put it. If you can't have a clean background, best thing to do is either use the blur feature on Zoom, or you can just set up a virtual background where they can't see what's behind you, but just have a clean professional background. We also don't use profanity within our team. It's another thing that's very important in our culture. It's the fact that we do not use profanity. And also we ask for participation. right? We really like people that ask a lot of questions and are engaging in training and stuff like that. So just make sure to participate. All right, so those are our expectations of you. But I just wanted to show in closing, the dream is real. And here's just 2 things I want to show you. This is Caleb Bergamini. He was 23 years old when he started with us. And he had just gotten his senior associate promotion. He was about 6 months in the company. And Caleb found a client that was in a position where they had some very aggressive accounts. There's about 2.1 million sitting in very aggressive accounts. And he showed them an opportunity to be able to move that into an indexing strategy where they could get, at the time, a 20% bonus. So $400,000 bonus, and also have guarantee from downside market loss. When Caleb met with this client and set this up, the client didn't have to pay Caleb anything. So the client didn't pay Caleb for the plan. He also put him through the ringer. Caleb had to sit down with the guy's current financial advisor, had to sit down with a lawyer, actually 2 lawyers. He had to present this plan to like 3 different people on top of him just to try to get him to do this, because he was questioning everything, because that's a lot of money, $2.1 million. So the client ends up moving it. And then you can see level 1 pay on Caleb's commission cycle was $29,370. Level 10 pay was $11,748, and level 15 pay was $11,748. So his training associate, and associate pay added up to $52,000 for helping that one client. None of which came from the client's pocket. Athene is the company that paid him $52,000 for the placement of that account. So figure, at 23 years old, Caleb made more helping one client than most 23-year-olds make in a year. And that was from helping one person. But then on top of that, this is Eric Olson. Eric's been in the company for over 20 years, right? But has built an incredible organization. And this was back, and the reason I'm specifically showing this is not to say like, wow, look how much money Eric makes. The reason I'm showing this is because of the fact that, so in our company, we get paid every Tuesday and every Friday. Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Friday. We get paid 8 to 9 times a month. So on 7/15, Eric was paid $379,000 in one day. 56,000, 53, 117, 155, 52, 91, 40, 78, 161. For that 31-day period, Eric made $1,087,000 in 31 days. The reason that is so important showing this is because in the beginning of June, Eric was in Cancun. And while he was in Cancun, he got COVID, and it affected him tremendously to the point that he was hospitalized for 5 weeks. He almost died twice while he was in the hospital. But while he was in the hospital for 5 weeks, in that month, while he's sitting in a hospital bed, he made over $1 million in 1 month. That is the benefit of having a system that runs your business, is because it's not dependent upon him. Right? And so whether you're coming here to be a personal producer, you can see what you can make as a personal producer. Or if you're coming here to build an agency, whatever your path is, right? There's a way to win here. And the dream is real either way. But I do encourage you to allow yourself to dream again, because anything is possible here. There's no cap on what you can make and what you can do with this. When you hit senior marketing director, there's so much room to grow. You got SMD level 1, 2, 3, 4, EMD, CEO, EVC level 1, 2, 3, SCVC level 1, 2, 3, 4, executive chairman, 1, 2, 3, 4, field chair. I mean, there's so much opportunity. There's never a cap. There's never a glass ceiling. And I know I said the last thing was in closing, but I forgot about the slide. So this is truly in closing. I just want to show you the diversity of people winning here. And so when you look at, it's making me verify, let's see, 5, 3, 6. Oh. Sorry about that. All right. So this is just for 2022, new cash flow milestones. So this is the first time crossing this milestone. It doesn't mean they made it last year and they're still making it. It's just new cash flow milestones. We had 2 people pass 9 million a year in income, Eric and Rial. Daniel Fombo has only been here for 5 years and he's already over 6 million a year in income. We had 3 people cross 4 million a year in income, 1 over 3 million, another 5 over 2 million, another 4, 8, 12 over 1.5, 4, 8, 12, 16, another 16 over 1 million for the first time. These are all just first time milestones. And then you can see all the $750,000 earners, all the $500,000 earners for the year, right? But as I scroll through this, does anybody want to say what they notice?
Diversity.
The diversity. There is not a cookie cutter person that wins here. What I have noticed being a part of this company is that the one thing that separates the people that win and don't win is who has the heart to want to win. Right? And the only reason that you should fail here is if you quit. But every single person, all their backgrounds, it's every single background, every religion are winning here. And I think that's the most fair and level playing field that you could possibly have. I don't see any other companies like that. And so point is the fact that, like, really allow yourself to dream again and know that this is possible. It's simple. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. This is not easy. There's a lot to learn. As you can see, there's a lot to learn. But as long as you're consistent and you show up to training and you do the activity, you are going to win here. Right? And this is just some of our leadership team. These are some of our SMDs that we have. And there's another 7 that are taking their SMD promotions in July. And just can't wait to see who's next on the screen, right? Who our next wave of leaders are within this group right here. So thank you so much for jumping on for Startup School. It's been great spending the last 2 hours with you. I know it was a lot of information, but I hope you guys got a lot out of it. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.